When mentioning Mexican drug cartels, the two names that send shivers down the world's spine are Sinaloa and Los Zetas. One is a sophisticated underground syndicate that controls the global drug system through money and connections. The other is a brutal army that uses violence to dominate territories, unafraid to confront the government. So, between a cartel that operates like the mafia and a cartel that fights like a military force, who is truly stronger? Who poses the greatest threat to society? And if these two organizations were to face off directly, which side would reign supreme? Let's analyze, compare, and debate. Any organization needs a leadership structure and a clear operational framework to maintain power and expand its influence. However, when comparing Sinaloa and Los Zetas, we see two completely different organizational models, one based on sophisticated control, the other on military-enforced dominance. The striking fact is that each model has its own advantages but also harbors deadly weaknesses. The Sinaloa cartel operates like an underground empire, where every member has a specific role, and no one can arbitrarily surpass their rank. At the top is a leadership council, previously controlled by Joaquin, El Chapo, Guzman and Ismael, El Mayo, Zambada. When one leader is arrested or killed, another takes their place, ensuring the organization does not collapse suddenly. This structure has allowed Sinaloa to survive for decades without being completely eradicated. This system resembles the Italian mafia, where power is clearly distributed, from territorial overseers to specialized groups handling different operations such as drug trafficking, money laundering, and the protection of legitimate businesses. This is why Sinaloa can tightly control the drug supply chain without causing excessive public massacres. With this approach, they not only generate massive profits but also avoid unnecessary attention. On the other hand, Los Zetas operate under a completely different model. They do not function like a corporation but rather as a paramilitary force. Founded by former Mexican Special Forces soldiers, Los Zetas have a decentralized structure, meaning no single godfather controls the entire organization. Instead, they are divided into independent groups, each operating autonomously within its controlled territory. The biggest difference lies in their approach to power. While Sinaloa establishes a long-term system focused on market control and avoiding unnecessary conflict, Los Zetas use violence as their primary tool to maintain authority. When they take over a town, they immediately extort businesses, restaurants, and local shops, turning the area into a stronghold rather than just a drug transit point. This provides them with quick revenue, but it also makes them an easier target for law enforcement, as their activities leave obvious traces. So, which model is stronger? In terms of long-term sustainability, Sinaloa proves to be more effective because it relies less on violence and more on political and economic networks to survive. They can bribe officials, police, and even major corporations, allowing them to legalize part of their drug money. Meanwhile, Los Zetas focus too much on violence, making them more vulnerable to government crackdowns and less likely to last over time. However, when it comes to territorial control, Los Zetas have the advantage. They do not need a complex management system, only weapons, bullets, and fear to establish dominance. While other cartels must build networks and maintain secrecy, Los Zetas operate with brutal simplicity. They take over, they control, and anyone who resists dies. But this harsh approach also leads to frequent internal conflicts and divisions. If these two cartels were to go to war, who would win? Sinaloa, with its sophisticated operational system, or Los Zetas, with its military strategy? This is a difficult question because they have fundamentally different approaches. If a large-scale conflict were to occur, Sinaloa has the financial resources to sustain a prolonged war, while Los Zetas hold an advantage in short-term battles due to their combat skills and powerful weaponry. However, one undeniable fact remains: Sinaloa has survived for decades and continues to thrive, whereas Los Zetas have begun to weaken due to relentless government crackdowns. This leads many crime experts to believe that Sinaloa's model has greater longevity, while Los Zetas face the risk of fragmentation and dissolution over time. But does that mean Los Zetas are weaker? Not necessarily. They may lack Sinaloa's sophisticated management system, but they have the most formidable fighting force in Mexico's underworld. If a cartel war erupts, there is no certainty that money and connections can triumph over military tactics and firepower. And this is what makes the rivalry between these two cartels one of the most debated topics in Mexico's criminal world. So, which model do you think is truly stronger? A cartel that operates like the mafia, knowing how to conceal power and sustain its influence over time, or a cartel willing to use unlimited violence to dominate territory? In terms of long-term survival, Sinaloa seems to have the edge, but in terms of brutality and direct control, Los Zetas remain a formidable force. Regardless of which side you take in this debate, one thing is certain: both organizations have left an indelible mark on Mexico's criminal history. And despite the government's efforts to dismantle them, they will find ways to survive in one form or another. But this battle does not end here. Because beyond their organizational structures, their methods of making money and financial networks differ greatly. And in the next section, we will explore who truly dominates the underground economy, Sinaloa or Los Zetas. If a criminal organization wants to survive, it needs a stable source of income. Without money, there are no weapons, no bribery of officials, and no way to maintain power. So, when discussing the differences between Sinaloa and Los Zetas, their financial strategies are what set them apart the most. One cartel is a mastermind in running a sophisticated, efficient transcontinental drug trade, while the other chooses to generate income through oppression, terror, and the exploitation of the very people in the territories they control. This raises an important question. Which approach is the smarter way to run a criminal empire? The Sinaloa cartel can be seen as the multinational corporation of the underworld. They don't just sell drugs, they control the entire supply chain. From production and transportation to distribution, cocaine from Colombia, heroin from Asia's Golden Triangle, and methamphetamine produced in Mexico, all of it is within their system. To smuggle drugs into the US and Europe, Sinaloa employs the most sophisticated methods: cross-border tunnels, mini-submarines, drones, and even legitimate transportation companies to disguise shipments. But what sets them apart the most is their ability to launder money. The revenue from drug sales cannot remain in its raw form. It must be legitimized through real estate, restaurants, casinos, and construction firms. This not only ensures that Sinaloa has money, but also grants them real power, as their investments in legal sectors strengthen their ties with political and business elites. This makes dismantling them significantly more difficult. In contrast, Los Zetas do not possess a refined drug trade network like Sinaloa. They do participate in the drug market, but they lack the reach to control the global supply chain. Instead, Los Zetas rely on direct, fast, and brutal income sources: kidnapping for ransom, human trafficking, oil smuggling, illegal gambling, and imposing extortion fees on all businesses within their territory. They don't care about maintaining a polished image or concealing their activities. They want everyone to know that if you live under Los Zetas' rule, you must pay up, or you will be eliminated. As a result, many cities in Mexico under their control resemble war zones, where civilians live in constant fear. However, this method of making money also makes Los Zetas an easier target for law enforcement. Their excessive violence attracts the attention of the government, military, and rival organizations. Once the Mexican authorities focus on dismantling Los Zetas, they have no way to conceal their financial operations like Sinaloa does. This is why, in recent years, Los Zetas have weakened, losing power to other cartels. Meanwhile, Sinaloa continues to expand, sustaining its drug trade without excessive public violence. So, which financial model is truly more effective? In terms of long-term sustainability, Sinaloa has the upper hand because they don't just earn money, they protect it, legitimize it, and expand their influence in ways that make them harder to dismantle. However, in terms of rapid territorial control, Los Zetas are more effective because they don't need negotiations or secrecy. They simply use brute force to impose dominance. However, this also limits their ability to wield influence on a global scale. But does Sinaloa's lower visibility and violence mean they are less dangerous? Absolutely not. While Los Zetas rule through fear, Sinaloa controls through backdoor deals. Their danger lies in their ability to manipulate legal systems, halt investigations, and buy off key officials. So, while one organization uses brute force and the other uses wealth and influence, both are equally dangerous in their own ways. This leads to the ultimate question, between a cartel that operates like a sophisticated enterprise and one that rules through sheer violence. Which is the bigger threat? Would you fear a gang that might execute you in the street for failing to pay extortion fees? Or would you be more wary of an organization that can control the legal system and make an entire government turn a blind eye to their crimes? This debate has no clear conclusion. But one thing is certain, both organizations have different strategies for achieving the same goal, power and profit. But if money is the lifeblood, then weapons are the ultimate tool for maintaining and expanding power. And in the next section, we will dive into the arsenals of these two cartels, where life or death battles take place every single day. In the underworld, money is crucial, but to protect that money, a cartel needs weapons powerful enough to deter enemies and maintain dominance. Without firepower and military strength, no amount of money can secure power against rival forces. When it comes to Mexico's two biggest drug cartels, Sinaloa and Los Zetas, their contrasting approaches to weaponry and combat tactics reveal much about their overall strategies. One side embraces technology, opting for precision attacks, while the other functions as a ruthless paramilitary force that uses open violence to conquer territory. The Sinaloa cartel is not a military organization, but it understands that survival in the criminal world requires weapons, and more importantly, knowing how to use them effectively. Instead of equipping themselves for direct combat with police or the Mexican military, they leverage technology to gain an advantage. One of their most critical weapons is not a gun but drones, tools used to monitor rivals, track drug shipments, and even deploy bombs for remote attacks. When necessary, they employ Barrett .50 BMG sniper rifles, armor-piercing weapons capable of eliminating targets from hundreds of meters away. Additionally, Sinaloa utilizes custom armored vehicles, modified pickup trucks reinforced with steel plating and mounted with machine guns to ensure safe movement through dangerous zones. However, their most valuable asset is their network of underground tunnels running across the US-Mexico border, allowing them to smuggle drugs undetected while also providing escape routes when needed. Their use of weaponry demonstrates that Sinaloa prioritizes strategy over direct confrontation. In times of conflict, rather than engaging in open battles, they can retreat through tunnels or use drones to track opponents from a distance. This is what makes them so dangerous. They don't just have firepower, they know how to use it intelligently. In stark contrast, Los Zetas was born from the military, and as such, they don't just see guns as tools, they see them as the primary means of control. They have no need for tunnels to hide, nor for sophisticated surveillance technology, because they fight in the open, ensuring that everyone witnesses their brutality. While Sinaloa equips itself for self-defense and securing drug routes, Los Zetas arms itself to wage war, annihilate opponents, and seize control of entire regions. Their arsenal includes heavy machine guns such as PKM and M60, weapons capable of penetrating armored vehicles and tearing through entire police squads in seconds. They also wield RPG launchers, a rarity among cartels but a staple of Los Zetas, used to destroy armored convoys and even shoot down military helicopters. However, the most terrifying aspect of Los Zetas is not just their weapons but how they use violence as a tool of psychological warfare. When they take over a city, they don't just eliminate their enemies, they do so publicly and gruesomely to instill absolute fear. The infamous images of bodies hanging from bridges, mass executions broadcast online, these are all part of their strategy. To Los Zetas, fear is the most powerful weapon, because when civilians and law enforcement are too terrified to resist, their control remains unchallenged. So, in terms of military strength, who is more powerful? When it comes to tactics and technology, Sinaloa has the advantage, as they strategically use weapons to avoid unnecessary conflict while maintaining control through intelligence and logistics. However, in direct combat situations, Los Zetas holds the upper hand due to their military training, superior firepower, and willingness to engage in immediate warfare. Yet, one undeniable truth remains. Los Zetas' unrestrained violence has made them the primary target of both the Mexican and U.S. governments. While Sinaloa operates in the shadows, manipulating the system from behind the scenes, Los Zetas' public brutality has led to relentless crackdowns, making them more vulnerable. So, overall, which cartel has the greater advantage? A cartel that uses weapons to sustain business operations while avoiding unnecessary conflict? Or one that views firepower as the sole means of maintaining authority? If the goal is immediate territorial control, Los Zetas has the edge. But for long-term survival, Sinaloa appears to be in a much stronger position. However, the war between these two cartels is not just about military strength. If weapons allow them to hold territory, then the drug market determines which cartel truly dominates the underworld. And in the next section, we will explore the most critical question of all. In the battle for control over the global drug trade, who is the true winner? If a cartel has weapons but lacks a market for its drugs, no matter how powerful it is, it cannot survive in the long run. In the underworld, controlling the global drug trade is not just about selling, it is a battle for power, strategy, and networks. When analyzing the two biggest forces in Mexico, Sinaloa and Los Zetas, the key question arises: who truly dominates the global drug market? Who is the real ruler of this lucrative underground economy? The Sinaloa cartel is not just a drug trafficking organization, it is an empire that controls the entire supply chain from production to distribution. They have direct links with cocaine suppliers from Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia, ensuring a steady flow of product. They also manufacture methamphetamine within Mexico and export it to the US, Canada, and even as far as Asia and Australia. However, the most critical factor is not the product itself but how Sinaloa transports and distributes it. Unlike smaller cartels that sell drugs locally, Sinaloa controls the entire transportation network, ensuring that from the moment the drugs leave the coca fields until they reach customers in the US or Europe, there are no middlemen except for themselves. Sinaloa's sophistication in drug trafficking is evident in its modern smuggling methods: mini-submarines, drones, concealed containers, and cross-border tunnels. No other Mexican cartel operates such a seamless system. This allows them to generate billions of dollars annually while evading law enforcement. By the time authorities shut down one smuggling route, Sinaloa has already established 3 others to keep the flow going. On the other hand, Los Zetas do not have the capability to dominate the international drug trade like Sinaloa. They lack deep connections with South American suppliers and do not have a sophisticated transportation network. Instead, they primarily control the domestic drug market in Mexico, selling directly to local addicts and smuggling drugs into the US through less advanced methods. Without a stable supply chain like Sinaloa's, Los Zetas struggle to expand globally, which is a major weakness. However, Los Zetas have a different advantage: they are not entirely dependent on drugs. While Sinaloa focuses on controlling the drug supply chain, Los Zetas diversify their revenue streams, engaging in oil smuggling, human trafficking, kidnapping for ransom, illegal gambling, and extortion of businesses in their territories. This provides them with an immediate cash flow without relying on long-distance drug shipments. But this approach also makes them an easier target for law enforcement, as their crimes are more visible and generate public outrage. Meanwhile, Sinaloa operates more discreetly, making them harder to dismantle. So, in the global drug market, Sinaloa is clearly the dominant force. They control the supply, have the best transportation methods, and operate with a level of professionalism unmatched by other cartels. However, in terms of generating quick cash from other criminal activities, Los Zetas excel, as they do not rely on complex logistics but simply use brute force to extract money from their surroundings. This difference in approach also means that Sinaloa and Los Zetas wield different types of influence in the underworld. Sinaloa rules from behind the scenes, using money to manipulate systems and ensuring that even if key figures are arrested, the organization continues running smoothly. In contrast, Los Zetas rule through violence, which prevents them from having long-term sustainability like Sinaloa. When a Los Zetas unit is wiped out, it cannot be easily replaced. unlike Sinaloa's well-structured hierarchy. So, which cartel has a more sustainable future? In terms of expansion, Sinaloa has the advantage because they are not confined to Mexico and can operate globally. However, in terms of immediate territorial control, Los Zetas are more effective. As they do not need negotiations or partnerships, they simply use force to take what they want. But this battle does not stop at market dominance. Because when a cartel accumulates too much money and power, it does not just face rival cartels, it also becomes a target for a much bigger enemy, the government and international anti-crime agencies. In the final section, we will discuss the ultimate question, between Sinaloa and Los Zetas. Which cartel is truly the greater threat to society? When a cartel becomes too powerful, its greatest enemy is no longer rival gangs but the government and international law enforcement agencies. No criminal organization can survive indefinitely unless it knows how to deal with authorities. And when comparing Sinaloa and Los Zetas, their responses to government crackdowns clearly reflect the nature of each cartel. Sinaloa knows how to conceal its true power, using money to manipulate politics, bribe police, and even establish connections with high-ranking officials in the Mexican government. This has allowed them to endure multiple presidential administrations and large-scale anti-drug campaigns while maintaining their dominance. When targeted by the government, Sinaloa does not engage in direct confrontation but instead seeks to weaken the legal system from within. This makes them dangerous in a different way. They do not need to fight on the streets because they can control the system from the shadows. Los Zetas, on the other hand, take an entirely different approach. When faced with government crackdowns, they do not retreat, they declare war. They are unafraid to attack police, military forces, and even assassinate government officials if necessary. This level of open defiance has made Los Zetas one of the most heavily targeted cartels by both the Mexican and US governments. However, their excessive violence and direct confrontation with the authorities have led to their decline, internal divisions, and loss of territory to other cartels. So, in terms of influence, which cartel is truly more dangerous? Sinaloa may attract less attention, but in reality, they have deeply infiltrated the political and economic systems, creating a cycle that makes their dismantling nearly impossible. Meanwhile, Los Zetas may instill immediate fear, but their inability to sustain power long-term due to their extreme brutality has led to their own downfall. Which of these two cartels poses a greater threat to society? A hidden organization that controls the government from the shadows or one that openly spreads terror in the streets? The answer is not simple. But one thing is certain. Both have left a bloody mark on Mexico's criminal history. And no matter how hard the government tries, this war is far from over. So, between Sinaloa and Los Zetas, which cartel do you think is more dangerous? A secretive organization that manipulates the political system from the shadows? Or a ruthless army that openly spreads terror in the streets? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy in-depth analyses like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on our latest content. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.